Hey guys, Trey Belcher here, back with the March edition of the Metabolic Stability series. And this month we're going to be breaking down the fourth movement pattern of the FMS hierarchy, the trunk stability push-up. The trunk stability push-up is an upper body pressing pattern. And though we're testing an upper body pressing pattern, what we're really checking for is reflex anterior core stabilization. Do our clients have the motor control to reflexively prevent unwanted movement through the spine and hips while executing an upper body pressing pattern? Rotation and extension are the two of the most common compensations we see in this pattern. So we're checking to see if our clients have the anterior core stability to prevent that unwanted movement through the spine and through the hips. So when we set up for this test, the setup is the same for men and women except for the hand position. To achieve a score of 3, for men, the starting position is thumbs at the top of the forehead. For a score of 2 for men, the thumbs are at the level of the chin. And if you can't achieve that score, the score is 1 unless there's pain. With pain, always score of 0. For women, to achieve a score of 3, the thumbs start at the chin. And if you can't achieve that score, or a score of 2, the thumbs are the level of the clap. Okay, so the setup on this, to achieve a score of 3 for males, start with the thumbs at the top of the forehead, and then slide the hand straight out to the side so that the web of the thumb is in line with the crease of the armpit. Bring your feet together, toes pulled back towards your chin, knees off the floor. Get the hands in position, and then the elbows come 1 inch off the floor. And from here, you press so that the chest and the hips raise off the floor at the same time. And return to the floor, making sure to keep the hands in the same position. Now, in this position, if there is any rotation or extension through the spine, the hands move down to the level of the chin. So, for instance, if I started this pattern and I lifted shoulders, then hips, or if I came up and I had to rotate to get through, then move the hands down to the level of the chin. Same setup as far as hands in relation to the armpits. For a score of 2. The score of 2 for men is the same as the attempt for a score of 3 for females. And then for a level 2 for females, hands in line with the collarbones. Same setup, hands to arms. Press and down. Now, with the trunk stability push-up, there is a clearing test. And for extension clearing test that just checks for pain. The setup for that, very similar. Hands are down at the shoulders in a normal, what we would consider a normal push-up position. Feet are flat. Everything from the hips down to the floor stays on the ground, and the upper body is pressed off the floor. The only question here is there pain? If yes, refer out to a clinician. If no, proceed to the next test. As always, we can have up to 3 attempts per test for the trunk stability push-up test. If a score of 3 is achieved on the first attempt, no need to test any further. You can proceed to the clearing test and then on to the next test after that. A couple corrective exercises that are great for this pattern. Number 1 is a walkout. Something we consider much like an inchworm. Start with feet together. Extend the hips back, knees can bend. Get the hands to the floor. Walk out to a push-up position. Hold for a second. Keeping the hips flexed. Walk the hands back to the starting position. 2 or 3 reps. Get you started to getting rid of that rotation, and extension through that push-up pattern. Next, we're going to go through a kettlebell halo. We're going to get into a tall kneeling position, knees wide, feet together, forming like a triangle between our knees and our feet. We'll take the kettlebell in an upside down position, right in front of our chin, and then we're going to work 90 at the elbow, around, back another 90 to the start position, and then back the other way. Now with this, we want to make sure the anterior core stays stable, locked in place, because you don't want to get any extension through the lumbar spine or any rotation as you go through this movement. Everything through the core, through the hips, stays stable. Back the other direction to begin. And that's a couple correctives for the trunk stability push-up. Thanks you guys for watching, and now I'll send it over to Josh and Jess for the DBRT part of the Metabolic Stability series. And as always, we appreciate it. Move well, move often.
Hey guys, I thought I'd use my super fancy mic here so you could better hear me. What I want to do is continue on the great work that Trey's laid it for us. So when we're talking about rotary stability, there's a lot of factors we need to take in consideration. It's one of the most challenging probably movements for people to learn how to do, because how do you teach people how to learn to resist these unwanted movements? So what we can do is we can use different environments and different tools to help reinforce these concepts. So while Trey laid out some great progressions and foundations, we also want to take consideration of who you might be working with. So if you're working with someone who's very deconditioned, who might be very overweight, who might be coming off injury, and so forth, being on the ground and being able to support yourself may not be possible. So what we can do is we can take advantage of other environments and use some other tools to help teach these qualities of rotary stability in a lot more friendly environments. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of the half kneeling position. And even in half kneeling, that might be too much. So again, something you can use is our sprinter stance. So these concepts I'm teaching here, you can also use in sprinter stance if this is too complex for a lot of your clients. Now, half kneeling obviously gives us the opportunity to build in a little easier these rotary stability concepts. If you think about the classic bird dog and you change the angle of the half kneeling, you can kind of see some of these concepts come to life. So this is not difficult, but a lot of people miss some subtleties when using bands to do this press out that I'm going to do. Now, it's very important to understand that this is not really a chest exercise. I'm not really trying to target a specific muscle. I'm trying to actually integrate the entire chains of the body. That means everything from the feet to the hands and everything in between. So what I want to do is using the bands versus like a cable system I like for this, because as the bands go out, they get more challenging. So as they go out, I have to learn how to brace more and find that stability. So there's definitely an advantage in using bands for this exercise. So let me come down. Now, where a lot of people go wrong, obviously, is just in their typical setup of half kneeling. We want a relatively vertical shin and vertical thigh. Now, the other part that a lot of people miss out on is they don't use the back foot. So I want to use the back foot to help lock in my pelvis and get that stability from the ground up. So again, a lot of people, if you drop here, they drop their pelvis, the ribs get big, and so forth. So how do we teach people how to find that stability? Is a lot through the distal portions of their hands and their feet. So once I establish that tension, now how I want to grab the handles is important. So I want to grab them so palms are facing my body, and I'm much lower than a lot of people would start. A lot of people would start up here or go out here. The reason I want to be here is so when I press out, I'm actually using my core, my lats, my whole body to press the weight. So even in elite bench pressers, they know the lats are critical for both shoulder stability and core stability. So when I sit up, I don't want to be out here, here, so forth. I want to almost think about from my belly button or above that 90-degree angle, pushing down my feet, squeezing the handles, and driving out, hold that to full extension, then pull the weight back in as I continue to press down. Push out, hold, then pull back and in. Once we get good at that, then obviously we can add layers like seesawing back and forth, would start to amplify that need for rotary stability. So a really great way to introduce some of these concepts in very friendly ways for a variety of different populations. In a moment, I'm going to show you how we layer progression to this through some very unique means and using different tools. So something else I wanted to show is we've been doing this a lot at the Perform Better Summits and the One Days, is a great way not only to build some rotary stability, but also teach people how to press safely, not using their shoulders, but using their entire body. So most times to press safely, you have to understand the concept. I want to be pushing down, not thinking about pushing up, which sounds very counterintuitive because the weight is going up or out. So we got to put people in positions and environments again that help them understand these concepts. So you would think that going overhead might be very difficult for a lot of people, but you'll find that when you teach this properly, it actually allows them to get better mobility in the upper body because I can get that proximal stability. So let me go over what I'm going to do. So I want the band again on one side, and the band is going to be on the side of the front leg. Now, I'm going to have the kettlebell up in the rack position. So I could simply just work on some pressing with the kettlebell in the rack, and that gives me a great rotary stability exercise. I'm going to come a little further for you guys. But what I want to do here is I want to press the band out like here so I have my plank. So I'm creating a foundation of stability. Then I'm going to squeeze the handle so my elbow comes into my ribs. I'm pushing down my feet as I press up. Pull the weight back down. Quick breath. And pull the weight back down. Now I could repress in between, but the key is that press out by the band is giving me that core stability to find better mobility in my upper body, as well as giving me additional strength through Sherrington's law of irradiation. So there's a lot happening in a relatively simple drill. Where do people go wrong? Mostly with the band. So for example, people a lot of times will turn the hand out like this. I don't have my lat anymore, okay? They'll have the arm come up. Well, now I don't have my lat anymore. If anything, I want to err on being low the body than too high. So a lot of these things come down to the details of the exercise and really understanding why you're doing it, and that makes how you perform the exercise make so much more sense. So in order to appreciate what we're going to be doing, which is making a big leap in some of our rotary stability, but I want to show you where things can go, is understanding how our tools function differently. So obviously I love kettlebells, we just did a kettlebell drill, but there's times I'd rather use our ultimate sandbag over the kettlebell, and I'll explain why. So in order to go, a lot of you have seen, let's say, a kettlebell halo. Now, overall, a good exercise, right? By moving the weight around my body, I have to change how my core creates that stability for my frame. I'm trying to resist extension, trying to resist rotation and lateral bending. So I'm actually getting core stability in all three planes, which is phenomenal. Now, if we look at that conversely to the ultimate sandbag, if I do a very similar looking drill that we call around the worlds, what you should notice is that because of the implement, I can make a much bigger range of motion. That means I'm actually engaging more of my core doing it. I'm also in a wider position with my arms that give a little bit more freedom of motion to my shoulders. So overall, I get more core stability, I get more of that dynamic lift and chop to plank, and secondarily, it's a little easier on my shoulders because I can keep the joints more open versus the kettlebell, I'm a little bit more closed up. So very important to understand why we're choosing different drills. Now, we could spend some time, and I've done some previous videos on just doing the around the world, but let's make this a little bit more dynamic. So a lunge is another great opportunity, since we're talking about half kneeling. A lunge is basically a progression of half kneeling to introduce some rotary concepts. Now I get a little bit more reflexive, where I just don't want to create tension. I want to be able to create tension at the right moment to create that stability. So what I can do is what we call a rear step half around the world. Very clever name, right? So I'm going to go backwards because it's more stable for me. It's easier for me than going forwards. And I'm going to go half of the movement. So I'm just going to go to my upper back. So a good cue is I want the weight to touch my upper back, and I want to do so without allowing my ribs to come up. So how do I do that? If I push down on my feet like we've been talking about, that keeps my ribs down. If I lose my feet, my ribs will tend to expand and I'll lose that core stability. So generally you want to use either our core or power ultimate sandbags. That's the the green or the red straps. And what we're going to do is generally go with the outside handles. It just gives a little bit more freedom and range of motion to the shoulders. So it makes the implement also a little more stable. So at first we're going to go very slow with this. So I'm going to want to plant my back foot because I want to use both feet. And as I descend, I'm going to bring into one side. So let me show you. So I'm going to come down. I can lower myself to half kneeling, bring the weight over to here. I'm pausing so I make sure I don't lose my ribs. Come back around, drive through both legs and stand up. So that would be the first step, right? Allowing people to learn to decelerate, come down, press through their feet, keep their ribs down, drive back up. As they get more proficient, we can make this more reactive by both making it one movement and not letting our knee touch the ground. So if I come down, hover, but now I really got to use both feet. And the speed of motion, is which I just moved there, is the speed I want to go for this drill, because when you go really fast, people tend to let their ribs extend, they tend to not use their feet, and it makes the weight a lot more unstable. But what you see is how we can layer from very foundational to higher level, more performance and sophisticated forms of strength training. So rotary stability is really important because it plays such a major role in my functional movement capabilities. If I lack rotary stability, it's going to show up in a lot of different compensations, but I can also build it up to higher levels where I'll have transfer to a lot of different training goals and ways to make your clients more successful.